Hey, it's me, Curtis. Welcome to the show, April 6, 2023. Can't believe the year is moving so quickly. Today we had our 13th Master Gardening class, and I got to tell you all, I'm truly enjoying it. It's incredible. I think I shared with you earlier that I took this class for a couple of reasons. One, I'm like, I've been gardening all my life, so what can they teach me? Just give me a title, Master Gardener. First day, my mind's blown. I've learned so much. And today we had an incredible presenter, speaker. She's a PhD, Stephanie Dole, Dr. Dole. She's known as the Beetle Lady. I'm going to share about a minute and a half of her with you all. That was from today's class. Then I'm going to flip into the presentation, the webinar I gave for Sunrise Senior Living last week. We did 5 recipes, and the idea was to teach you how to be a gourmet on a budget, okay? So enjoy Dr. Dole, the Beatles. I thought John, George, Paul, and Ringo were incredible Beatles. This woman, Stephanie's got some Beatles that you're not going to believe. Peace, spread love, enjoy the show, and I'll see you soon. Holla back, boy.
Sorts of big shops that they have. So this is one of the biggest beetles in the world, and this is showing its life cycle. So it starts out as an egg, and then a little larva, which gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Oh. And bigger. Oh. And these are its breathing holes, those dots you see along the side of its body. If you have hornworms on your plants, those are one of the best ones I use for teaching about the breathing holes. Here's what the person has done is they've created forest foam around it to give it a little chamber. This one's going to be a Hercules beetle, so it's going to have that really long horn, so it has to have the horn shape for the pupa. And now it's pupating. Here's somebody holding it. These pupae can wiggle, so they can do a little like this. Wow. And it has the horns there. And you can see where its legs are.
I think I hurt somebody.
And then when it emerges, because the horn is a structure that's already that shape, it doesn't have to blossom out like those wings on the cicada, it's already started to sclerotize, which is when it cures and hardens. So it's already black, but you'll see the wings are a light color because they actually had to fold out. So it's got white wings still. And then those wings eventually cure and harden and they become kind of a speckled green in this particular species. So there's the person holding it. Wow. And that's the size of the beetle that just died. His name was Andre the Giant. He was I love him.
Andre the Giant?
Yeah, so that shows you an extreme. Beetle was that? This one.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Emma. I am with Sunrise Senior Living, and we're so excited to be hosting this webinar today. During the month of March, we've been celebrating Taste of Sunrise, which is a program that highlights our incredible dining program. Everything is, so specifically thought out for our residents, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in. So super excited to have had a great month celebrating that. And what better way to wrap up the month than with a live cooking demo from Curtis Aikens. So without further ado, I will introduce our speaker, Curtis Aikens. Curtis, we're so excited to have you on today. I'm very excited for your presentation, as I'm sure everyone is. So whenever you're ready, take it away.
Wow, thank you so much, Emma. And I thank you for sharing that video of 3 very important women in my life. 2 have gone on to their glory. Rochelle, I believe, is in Los Angeles, and she's on the Zoom. She told me that she was signed up. So my mom, seeing that video, it brings happy, I get that, what do we call in the South, chicken skin. And I want to thank the folks at Sunrise for allowing me to share my passion for food. It's interesting when we talk about wanting to make a difference in not only my life, but others' life. My mother, as she said in the clip, she put love into her food. And my personal motto, my personal logo, my personal slogan is spread love, right? Spread love. And the old Food Network shows, we'll bring the cameras in about midway through the show, and I tell them, I say, come in close, because you got to get a hug. 8 hugs a day, you got to get them, you got to give them. And I still live by that. However, nowadays we have to be careful who and how we hug, right? All right, so we're talking about food today. And again, thank the folks at Sunrise for allowing me to be a part of this. And I'm going to try to share some stories with you along with some great recipes. Fresh food, that's my forte. One of my mentors was a gentleman named Joe Carcione. I'm sure a lot of you remember Joe. He was called the Green Grocer with his fresh vegetable tip of the day. Joe is an incredible Italian American, and I met him while working in the San Francisco Golden Gate Produce Market. Back in the day when I had hair, and you saw the hair on the video, so I'm not kidding. My children can see Dad used to have hair, and my grandkid can see that too someday. Joe Carcione taught me so much about buying fresh foods. Now, the 5 tips I'm going to share with you throughout our demo, our video today, are the keys, I think, to buying fresh food. Not just produce, it also works in the seafood market, in the meat market, poultry, whatever fresh food you're looking at. And the first tip I want to share with you is use those beautiful eyes, whether they're blue, green, gray, or chocolate brown. Just use those beautiful eyes and look at your produce item, inspect it. Like this tomato, looks great, right? Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself because the nose is something else you do. So look at it, make sure there's no holes, any blemishes, whether it's a tomato or a pepper or a Vidalia onion. This is the Vidalia onion. And I've got a tip about that when we do our first recipe, which is a tomato and onion soup. Well, really just a tomato soup. And there's only 3 ingredients in this recipe, the basic 3 ingredients. Emma, do you want to cue that one up for everyone?
For sure.
In between the videos, I mean, if you have questions, just type them in, and then Emma and I will take a break. We'll answer as many questions as we can. Here are the ingredients for our first recipe. I've got 3 tomatoes, a cube of butter, or stick of butter, as Mama would say, and there's our Vidalia onion. Salt and pepper to season. However, we're not going to count that as an ingredient, are we? We're just going to say that's to give it the flavor. And our video, as it moves along, the first thing we want to do is to chop this onion. Are we having technical difficulty? There we go. Now, safety tip. I always put a wet paper towel underneath my cutting board. That keeps it from slipping. Now take your time and peel that onion. And, you know, what's that old saying? Do as I say, not as I do. You see how I'm using the tip of that blade? When I'm working with kids, I don't do that. I show them, we put the blade down, then we peel the onion, okay? Now, pro tip, I love saying that. You see that right there? When buying Vidalia onions, sweet onions, the flatter the onion, the milder the flavor, the milder the taste. Those sulfites, don't ask me why, it just happens. Now here's another tip, chopping onions. See, I've cut that in half. I kept the root in. Now just run your knife down because onion, they have those rings. So when you cut it in half, it almost does most of the dicing for you. So I'm just running my blade down. Now watch this. You see how that just dices our onion right up? You can make small dice, large dice, just nice and easy. And I keep that root end connected because that holds it together. See how easy that is? Look how fast that man chops. Woo! Can you chop that fast? Well, it's called fast forward in the editing room. All right, now our tomatoes. What I'm going to do here is we're setting up to peel the tomato. I'm just going to cut a little X in the top of all 3 tomatoes. And then I'm going to take my knife here and just do what I call a little circle cut to remove that stem in. There are 2 sides of the tomato. That top part where we put the X, that's the blossom end. That's where your little blossom is, then it becomes a tomato. And this is the stem end where it's connected to the plant itself. All right, now got a pot of water boiling. We're gonna drop those in and let them cook for about, oh, look at him, he's got a stopwatch, 30 seconds. And then we're gonna remove them and place them into a little ice bath. What this does is stop that heating process. The tomatoes we're not cooking them, we're just parring them so that, in other words, they kind of swell up and then they shrink and it makes the skins easier to peel off. Now it's going to stop here in a second. Just let it run, Emma. We're going to do a little stop video that it does it. And what I want to show you here is, watch this. I learned to edit during COVID. What was your COVID hobbies? Someone put in the chat. Let me know what you guys did, what you learned in COVID. I used to be always in front of the camera, but those 2 years I learned to record using my, watch it stop. Oop, well, there's a part here where right here, it's going to stop. And I'm going to talk to you about that open part of the tomato. If you want to de-seed the tomato, just scoop those out right there. Now, my mom never seeded tomatoes, so I didn't. In fact, mom very rarely peeled the tomatoes. However, that's something I learned from those fancy chefs like Emeril Lagasse and Bobby and all those guys when we worked at the Food Network. Let's go ahead and make our soup. I'm going to melt my butter. I added a little bit of olive oil. I didn't show you that. However, the olive oil helps to raise the smoking point of that butter. In other words, the butter can get hotter. And we're going to saute these onions for maybe 7 to 8 minutes. I want the sweetness, the caramelization to come out of those onions, I'm sorry. And that looks pretty good. Let's add our tomatoes. Notice, I'm not going to add any liquid to this, no water, no nothing, because the tomatoes, like we are loaded with water. The lid's going to go on, bring it to a boil. Going to lower it and simmer. Now, here we go. After it's simmered for about 30 minutes, another little pro tip. You see what I did there? I took my ladle and I poured soup into a spoon. I put the spoon off to the side. That's your tasting spoon. Never put the spoon you're going to taste with into the dish. I also, after noticing the flavor, I took and added some of those San Marzano tomato paste in there to give it a little more punch, because this time of year, it's early spring, also still late winter in some parts of the country. The tomatoes just don't have the flavor they're going to have when they come from my backyard or from the local farmer's market. So I added those San Marzano tomato paste in to give it just a little more punch. Also added some dill. I just clipped some dill, not dill, Curtis, that is basil, fresh basil. I clipped in there to add a little flavor. And you can also add oregano, marjoram, things like that to give your tomatoes, that 3-ingredient tomato soup, a little more life. So feel free. One of the things that Julia Childs said to me is like, recipes are just starting points. You add or subtract what you like or don't like. Recipes, again, remember that, y'all, they're starting points. You don't have to prepare it just like me. I want you to prepare things that you like, okay? So let's roll it on, Emma. I'm going to show you a tip coming up here. You're going to see my little, that's it, the handheld blender, immersion blender. Now we're emulsifying, we're blending this up with that, and look at it, almost has like a cream effect to it, creamy texture without adding any cream to the soup. Now I'm going to serve it in soup in coffee cups, just clear coffee cups. I'm going to add a little toast to the bottom and a dollop of sour cream on top of each one of those. Then we will add our tomato soup. Oh, look at that. We're going to garnish it. Now you got to clean that, there we go. A little basil's garnish, and I've got a little red wine. I believe that's a Pinot from Ramsgate or La Crema. Lisa loves La Crema, so do I. There we go. I should have tasted that for you. So what do you all think of? That's our first recipe. Now, Emma, what did you think of that, huh? Do we have any questions about the tomato soup yet? Because I've got a little talk, I want to do a little talking about that tomato soup. If any questions, take your time while I chat about the soup. That tomato soup came about a couple of years ago because I had more tomatoes than I knew what to do with. So one of my ways of freezing or preserving tomatoes, as I just wash them, and I do what I did on the video. I'll remove the stem end, and I just cut them in pieces and put them in plastic bags, right? So during the winter, I had all these beautiful frozen heirloom tomatoes, so I made that soup, and it's become a hit. You know, that along with a grilled cheese sandwich, sometimes on cold nights, that's what Lisa and I have for dinner. Lisa, by the way, is my fiance. She's in Los Angeles, and I'm up here being home in San Francisco Bay Area. So we gave you a tip on look at the produce, right? And I'm going to use a tomato again. This is what's considered this time of year a hothouse tomato. They market these in the grocery store right now as heirlooms. However, they come out of Mexico, so buyer beware. I do like to buy food as close to home as I can. When I say as close to home, that is grown and harvested as close to home as possible. During the summertime, most of my fresh vegetables, I dare say 90% of the vegetables that we consume at my house come out of my yard, out of my garden. Okay, so the first thing was look at it. That's a beautiful tomato, although this time of year, the flavor might be down. So I want to recommend when you, in the wintertime, late spring, if you have to have tomatoes, look for cherry tomatoes, okay? They're loaded with flavor this time of year. I don't know why, maybe because they're smaller, right? In fact, I grew cherry tomatoes up until Christmas Day. I had a bet with someone that I could grow tomatoes in the wintertime. And I harvested tomatoes on Christmas Day. On my YouTube channel, you can go back and look at it. There's a show where I'm talking about these tomatoes. And as soon as I harvested them, though, I took the plant out. I said, look bad. You know, it was under the eave in the front yard. Any questions, Emma, before I give them the next tip?
Yep, it looks like we did get one, and I did forget to mention at the beginning, if you do have any questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll read them off between recipes. This question is asking, does the type of butter matter in the soup? Can it be salted, unsalted, or can it even be vegan?
I love that question. Fabulous. Yes, it can be any of it can be vegan, it can be margarine, whatever you want to use in that situation, especially if you are vegan, if you don't want to eat anything from an animal. So yes, great question. It can be that way. As far as the salt, unsalt, salt, that's a great question. For about 6 or 7 years, I worked with an incredible company, Novo Nordisk, who does diabetes medicine, right? I had the opportunity to travel around the country and teach people like me who have diabetes. I'm a person with type 2 diabetes. It runs in my family. So we have to be careful. In fact, there's a saying, the 3 M's: meals, your meds, take your meds when you're supposed to, and move. That's the exercise. So one of the things I taught folks when it comes to salt, we can train ourselves to require or use less salt. Let's say a recipe calls for a teaspoon of salt, okay? So you traditionally make that recipe with a teaspoon of salt. What I suggest is make that same recipe with half a teaspoon of salt. And then allow your taste buds to adjust to that, right? And just slowly, gradually cut down the salt to where you don't use salt at all. Remember, I'll share with you all, I used to coach high school football and baseball and women's college basketball. And I tell folks, we can train ourselves just like athletes. So I'm sure a lot of you on the Zoom today, whether you play golf or walk or was a tennis player, whatever it is the exercise you do, right? We have to train to do that well. So take your time. You can train yourself to require less salt. I think Emma and I were talking about this a couple of days ago. She's going through a yoga teacher training. I've gone through my yoga teacher training. I realized that I'd rather be a yoga student than a teacher. It's kind of like being the Wizard of Oz and they pull that, I know too much. I just like being in my class and namaste. Y'all see my namaste frogs in the backyard? Anyway, I digress. Back to our tips, okay? A tomato, any vegetable, fruit, right? And you will hear me say, touch it, feel it, right? So one of the things too, make sure it feels good. Tomatoes should be firm, but not rock hard. Peaches, we're talking that video about peaches being sexy. Curtis Jr. was born I was at the home show in LA with Sarah, and she goes, Curtis, you're really nervous. I said, yeah, the baby's coming, right? And now this boy is 30-some years old, 31 years old, married, wow, traveling the world playing music. But I give this tip about buying peaches. Make a fist, right? Not to punch anyone, but to love someone, right? Now, thumbs up, press your thumb on the end of your index finger. And if you press the end of your thumb with your index finger, that's about as much give a ripe peach should have, okay? And then also, we'll get to smell later, okay? Feel it. So when I say it should be heavy for its size, right? Now that tomato is heavy. That lets you know that it's full of juice, right? But it's not, however, I don't like to use the word but, I like to say however instead. So it's heavy for its size, so that means it's full of juice, full of flavor, right? The same with the heirloom, whether it's coming from Mexico or the backyard. So the first tip, look at it. Second tip, feel it. Okay, we got more tips coming on. Any more questions before we go to the next video, Emma?
Nope, we're all good on questions right now, and I'll pull it up.
Cool. Here comes the next video is our burrata caprese. And we're going to talk, burrata is an incredible cheese. Here are our ingredients. We've got the burrata cheese out front. I've got arugula. There's another Vidalia onion. I've got red onion, which I'm going to use in this one. And I got those heirloom tomatoes. And in the back there, you see the beautiful array of cherry tomatoes. On the far right, there's nonnas. And nonna in Italian is grandma, I believe. My Italian friends help me out. And this beautiful basilico in the back. I'll tell you a quick story about basil. Can we pause it there, Emma? And let's, up there in the top, you see the basil. Years ago, I worked at a place called Balducci's in New York City. And Balducci's was the premier gourmet grocery store in America. I mean, Dina DeLuca, all these places, so many of these places, they really took from Balducci's. And anyway, Andy Balducci was an incredible human being, taught me so much about the gourmet world. And I'll share that with you too, because my granddad was a gourmand and didn't know it because he was just a country dude from Georgia, right? Anyway, basil. There was a guy who worked at the market named Salvatore. And every day at work, I would see Sal taking a basil leaf and putting it in his wallet. And I say, Sal, what's with the basil every day? He goes, Curtis. And I can't do an Italian accent, so I'm not going to try. He said, Curtis, I take this beautiful, nice smelling green of the basil, put in my pocket, and I'll always have some green in my bag. I love that. In other words, hey, if I got basil, I won't be broke. We can run the video there, Emma. All right, there's that red onion, and again, the Vidalia, and the very back is salt and pepper. I think I'm going to sneak a couple more items in here too, because I'm going to show you 2 ways of making this burrata salad. Let's see what sneaks in this video, Emma. Oh, there it is. The cherry tomatoes on a pan and a baguette. And we'll see those in a minute. You can roll it. Thank you, Emma. I hope you all are enjoying this wherever you are across the country, at sunrise or at your home. So I'm going to slice the baguette and just cut, and I'm going to make toast points here. We're going to slice this, and you'll see how we toast it up in a minute. Again, the paper towel under the mat, under the cutting board. And we're going to slice these cherry tomatoes just enough, because we're going to roast them with a little olive oil and salt. And you'll get to see this process. So just take your time, slice them. They're going to go on the roasting pan. And this is just a personal tip. You notice how I put foil on that pan? That keeps the pan from really like messing up, all right? So sometimes I want to put things on the actual surface. Most of the time, I'll use something like this. Okay, this is a country tip, not a pro tip. I'm a seed saver. We'll just place a piece of paper towel on that cutting board, and those beautiful tomato seeds will stick to that paper towel. I'll let that dry, then I can plant them this summer. There we go, we're ready to roast now. A little olive oil on our toast. Drizzle a bit on those tomatoes, toss it over. And the salt, what the salt does, not only flavors it, it also helps to bring the moisture out of the tomatoes. Now I'm just cleaning this bottom of this onion, red onion. I notice I just clipped that off, but I kept the root attached. Again, that's that safety thing. I'm gonna do some rings, same tip, I'm gonna slice it. I want halves here, so I didn't dice this. We're gonna use this yellow tomato. Can you pause the video right there for a second, Emma? I wanna talk about that beautiful yellow tomato. All my life, I had learned, or we talked about the tomatoes. The yellow tomatoes didn't have as much acid in them. And, especially at this mature age, sometimes things may affect my tummy ways that it didn't years ago. So I prefer the less acid tomatoes. However, in my master gardener class, they're saying that there's no difference in the acidity in the yellow or whatever color the tomato is. Now, I wonder if it's the placebo effect, because, they don't give me any kind of acid problems in my tummy, whereas certain red tomatoes do. Okay, that's enough of talking about acid in tomatoes. So can you start it back up there, Emma? Thank you. I just love that color. It's like a sunshine. Now that looks ugly, right? There's a reason I'm doing this. That's that Nona's drizzle. I put it on the bottom of the plate, and then I put my arugula on top, because arugula, rocket, as they say in South America, has a little bit of a bite to it. So I put that balsamic on the bottom there, so the arugula will take that sweetness up and tame some of the bite. So here's that beautiful yellow tomatoes, burrata cheese. Now, burrata, we'll talk about that. It is a mozzarella, and it is just kind of formed into a case and then soft in the middle. Look at that. I'm gonna open it up like a flower, Let's garnish this. This is our first burrata caprese, okay? Arugula, onions, balsamic drizzle, along with some cherry tomatoes and basil garnish. These are those roasted tomatoes, the roasted cherry tomatoes. And remember, you can roast whole tomatoes as well. Now here's our trick again with dicing the onion. See that? Now what? I'm gonna make a finer dice on this one. See how close the knife is to the edge? Look at that, that's a really nice fine dice. There we go. Onions in there, a little bit of olive oil and salt. Where are you going, Curtis? Get back. There we go. Wait to get the tomatoes. There we go. Now we're going to add those there. And you're going to see I'm going to pour the juices because they are so sweet. I want that in my caprese. A little bit of basil. I'm going to toss it over. And we're going to serve this more like a crostini as opposed. Oh, here I'm comparing the two burrata, two mozzarella. Remember, burrata is a soft center. It's a mozzarella that's been formed into a case, a kind of a casing for the softer middle. Hey, it looks like he's having trouble there. You know, can you pause it there for a second? I want to tell you guys this is the truth. I'm breaking myself up here because Lisa, I say, honey, please don't use the kitchen scissors to cut items other than food. And there I am using my kitchen scissors to slice open a bag. She is going to get me for that. Okay, roll the video, Emma. All right, now there's that soft mozzarella. And see how the firm mozzarella is something that we use mostly in pizzas. You can also use it in a burrata salad. You know, if you like it, use it. You don't have to go by what I go by. So we're gonna bring in our tomatoes. I think I'm gonna get a better container for this one, right? Let's see what we got. There we go. We added some salad to the bottom. We're putting the burrata on top of some basil leaf. And then we're just going to, there's that balsamic drizzle. Watch this. This is so, I've got to make this when we get done. I'm going to make another one today, just for me. A little lettuce on top. There's that grilled tomato burrata caprese. I love that. So beautiful. Whichever tomatoes you like, go for it. Oh, there he is, sneaking a taste in. There's Curtis George Aikens. Oh, look at that. Y'all, what do you think, folks at home? I want you to try these recipes, okay? Thumbs up. What do you think, Emma? You having fun?
Yep, that looked delicious. I'm gonna make these afterwards as well, so.
So anyone watching us, what I'd love for you to do, if you've, like I said, if you've got questions, we will read them. We can do them now. If not, you can send them to me, chef@curtisaikens.net. And also, remember what I said earlier, recipes are starting points. I'll never forget, I met Julia Child and Paul Prudhomme on the same day.